I have the pleasure tonight of speaking on behalf of Tanner Smith. I was trying to think today, I don't specifically remember the first time I met Tanner. It was probably on the freshman retreat at the start of his 9th grade year. He was new to Wesleyan, and I was starting my first year as high school principal. When basketball season began that year, Tanner was a full-time JV player. But we did ask him to dress out for a few varsity games. And the first time I remember him getting in a varsity game of any significant playing time was in December when we played a game at the Gwinnett Arena. And down the stretch, we put Tanner in the game because he was the best free throw shooter on the team. If memory serves me correctly, Tanner, I think you were 6 for 6 from the free throw line down the stretch, and we ended up winning the game. Over the next several weeks, our confidence in Tanner grew, as did his confidence in himself. By the end of the season, he was the starting point guard for the varsity as a 9th grader. And in all my years of coaching, I have never seen a player improve that much in such a relatively short period of time. Tanner had entered Wesleyan with 3 other talented freshmen. But by the time we got to the start of his junior season, 2 of them had left, and the bulk of the scoring and leadership load was left entirely to Tanner. He responded with one of the finest individual seasons I've ever seen from a high school basketball player. He was easily one of the leading scorers in Gwinnett County that season, and the performances he put up against arch-rival Buford were ridiculous. After dropping 44 points on them in their gym, where seemingly nobody ever plays very well, he was frustrated that we had lost the game. Several weeks later, he saved perhaps his finest effort of the season for senior night. Tanner scored 32 points as we upset the number 2 ranked Buford team. Trailing by 13 at halftime, he scored 22 in the second half, including the final 5 points of the game. Perhaps more impressive, though, was that after the game, in typical Tanner style, his comments to the reporter covering the game were all about the team and wanting to win the game for the seniors on their special night. It was Tanner's normal, unselfish approach, deflecting praise to others. Anyone in the gym that night knew who the best player on the floor was, and it's interesting to note that while Tanner could be a prolific scorer, ranking 3rd on the school's career scoring list, my guess is that he is more proud of the fact that he is 2nd in career assists. Tanner found more joy in seeing his teammates succeed than he did in his own accomplishments. That unselfishness was never more important than at the start of his senior year. Former teammate Howard Tompkins returned to Wesleyan after spending a year at Oak Hill Academy in Virginia. Howard was a highly regarded national recruit and a terrific player in his own right. Tanner could have easily made that transition difficult. But I never heard Tanner utter a word of jealousy or frustration as he saw his scoring average decline. More than anything, Tanner wanted to win. And he knew that with Howard on the team, his scoring may decline, but the team's chances for success would increase significantly. Tanner welcomed Howard back and was excited for him to rejoin the team, and the team went on to a fantastic season, working their way to a region championship and all the way to the state finals in Macon against a very talented team from East Lawrence High School. The game was tight at halftime when Howard Tompkins went down with an injury. It became apparent at that moment that if we were to win a state championship, it would be up to Tanner to lead us there. After sacrificing his personal stats for the good of the team looked to him and gave him the green light. To this day, I still don't think East Lawrence knew what hit them in the second half. Tanner was literally unstoppable. I believe he had 27 points that night, including a thunderous dunk to close out both the game and his high school career. He was easily named the MVP of the championship game. When I look back at Tanner's all-around game, his ability to see the floor, his athleticism, his competitiveness, and his leadership, I believe I can honestly say that he is the best boys basketball player to ever come through our school. Tanner, I have rightfully spoken about your athletic accomplishments this evening, but I want you to know that while you were an incredibly gifted basketball player, you are now an even better man. Your work with children who are stricken with cancer through Tanner's Totes is well known, admirable, and speaks for itself. But it is how you live your life on a daily basis and the manner in which you treat people that truly speaks to your character. Your accomplishments are wonderful and should be celebrated as they are representative of your giftedness and work ethic. However, who you are is far more impressive than what you have done. Perhaps I can pay you no higher compliment than to say that it is my hope that my two sons will grow up to be like you one day. When you called and asked me to give this speech tonight, I was truly honored and humbled. You need to know that you have impacted me much more than I could ever have hoped to influence you. Thank you for how well you represent Wesleyan School, for how well you love your mom and your dad, and for how well you live out Micah 6:8, which says, "And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God?" It is my pleasure to officially induct Tanner Smith into the Wesleyan School Athletic Circle of Honor.
That was probably a little too nice, but I appreciate it. This school's meant a lot to me, more than I could ever get back to it. It truly is a pleasure. But probably one of my first memories of Mr. Cleveland was actually that same freshman year basketball season. I'm starting to play more, and I'm making free throws. That was kind of how I got in the game. And anytime I would get in the game, I'd get off the bench, and from out of nowhere, Mr. Cleveland and Brett Buffton would just smack my behind as hard as they could. And whether I was playing awful or playing great, they came with the fire every time. And that was something that I really appreciated about Mr. Cleveland, is no matter what happened in my life, the ups and the downs, he was always there for me. And so when I got this honor, it was obvious that I wanted him and his family to be here for me tonight. And I'm extremely honored about that, so thank you. I apologize. I wrote this on my phone, which is probably not the best thing to do, but I had to make a flight. We won last night, which was great. We got a game tomorrow, so I had to make a quick trip back. So I'm going to do my best to get through this and go from there. I'm going to have to read it because my emotions might get the best of me. But tonight isn't about me. Tonight's about the people in my life who've made me who I am. Tonight is about the people here who have come one more time to support me. We live in a very interesting world. We love good quotes about perseverance and hard work, about toughness and grit. We put quotes in fancy lettering and put a really cool background on it, put it on social media, and it motivates us. I'm just as guilty as anyone. I love a great quote. But there's one problem. We don't ever live by the quote. But tonight I'm going to talk about people who live by all the cliche quotes that we talk about. And that's my parents. I'm not going to go into the whole story about Dad. It's been well documented and told over and over. But I'm going to talk about the inner battles that kept that well-documented story going. It's been 23 years my dad's been fighting cancer and graft-versus-host disease. He once wrote down goals for his life when he first heard the news of the cancer. He had a list, and that list ended with him watching me graduate from high school. Shockingly, that was 8 years ago. He surpassed his goals. It didn't come from sitting around, from asking others for help, or from keeping up with my schedule. It came from deep within. It came from him waking up every day, brushing his teeth, getting dressed, rolling out of bed, and being there for me and my mother whenever he was needed. It came from him spending countless hours on keeping up with what little body he had left, from keeping his mind sharp, and from holding discipline in his life so that his credibility was strong when he held me accountable for the discipline in mine. My parents have been married for 30 years in December, and only 6 of those years has my mother been able to have the marriage she dreamed of. Dad once told me that God found her for him because 99% of the women on the planet would have left him. and he won't blame him. When you meet her, she seems to not have a care in the world. She has the most caring smile and friendly voice. She remembers everyone's name. I'm shocked she hasn't run for public office. But honestly, I'm in awe of her every day. She takes care of my dad and her mother and her father and me, and lastly herself. She's the definition of a servant. She even performs minor surgery every night on my dad so that she can do it all in his name. I have been blessed with great leaders. Tonight, I'm honored to be around present and past inductees, teachers and coaches and parents. And being a player for so long and now a coach, I'm finally fully wrapping my head around the concept of leadership. We all need strong leaders to follow, and I was blessed with many through my high school years. When I decided to be a great basketball player, it meant sacrificing some of the other parts of my life. The time, the money, and attention that my family spent on helping me become a great basketball player is truly endless. They also understood and continue to understand that I can't always be a great son, a great boyfriend, or a great friend if I've decided that basketball is something that I want to be great at. My family never pushed me in a certain direction. Rather, they removed themselves from the situation as a parent, and many times gave me advice like a non-biased third party. They let me choose what I wanted to be great at. Being a parent is very similar to being a coach, I've learned. You're your player's toughest critic in practice, pushing them to their limits to show them how much they have in the tank. You give them energy, direction, and most importantly, confidence. Because even though you're their biggest critic in practice, you become their biggest fan on game day. Players respond when they know how much you care about them. I tell my players all the time that I'm never going to lie to them. I'm never going to look them in the eyes, tell them they had a great game if they haven't. How disrespectful would that be? It only hurts the relationship in the end, and with that, the confidence portion is the most important. I've learned that players not only mimic your actions as a coach, they amplify them. So what I provide is confidence, because confidence is contagious. Leaders think the same way. They tell the truth, understand how important confidence is in people, and my parents are the mold for leadership. I amplify their actions during the tough times. I smiled in the face of adversity because that's what Dad did. I prayed at the top of the mountain and at rock bottom because that's what Mom did. And finally, I exuded confidence because that's what they did together. Their confidence was contagious. I can't thank all the great leaders that molded me tonight, but you know who you are. And to all the coaches, teachers, teammates, classmates, parents, brothers, and sisters, remember to be a leader. Because, become someone people want to not only mimic, but amplify. Thank you.